Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is MUFC vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean. So glad to be back with another Man United news roundup for the day. Shifting gears a little bit today, obviously, if you haven't been able to tell by the thumbnail, and maybe you obviously saw some of the big updates coming out this morning all over social media through The Athletic. Everybody's talking about it. I'm going to give my thoughts. Most importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on this update regarding INEOS, the task force, Manchester United, and a new stadium. So before we do get stuck in, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Go back and check out some of the old videos on a lot of the deep dives on a lot of the players we've been linked to. So Mizraoui, Ugarte, all these guys. You want to learn a little bit more about them. A lot of big videos in the past about Eric Ten Hag, Jadon Sancho drama, all the things that Ten Hag has had to deal with in the past and everything. Obviously, one of my favorite videos that I did was 5 thoughts on last season for Manchester United as a whole. Go check out that video. And then, of course, the deep dives on, Ruud van Nistelrooy as coach, Rene Haka as coach, and all that. So tons of stuff in here besides the news roundups and things like that. As the season gets underway, for those of you who are new, yes, we will be doing, match previews, match reviews, 3 thoughts on the matches, and then obviously transfer talk and whatnot throughout the season. And then, of course, covering any major events that go on throughout the season as well, giving my thoughts. But again, most importantly, hearing your thoughts on a lot of that stuff. This is your channel, as I always say. I'm just kind of here to facilitate the conversation and keep things on track, just kind of like what I do on a day-to-day basis in my job. So in any case, like the video, subscribe. Let's get stuck in. So first things first, big updates today coming from Lori Whitwell on The Athletic, that Manchester United will aim to build a 100,000 seat stadium should the club press ahead with plans to move to a new Old Trafford. So weird that they keep calling it a new Old Trafford, because it's not going to be Old Trafford anymore. So the report continues, the 6-figure capacity is seen as a realistic number designed to future-proof the ground given high demand for tickets. We know that we're the biggest club. We get a lot of fans. A lot of people don't get to come because the tickets are sold out. There's a lot of season ticket holders. Sounds like the club recognizes, or INEOS recognizes, the potential of just adding a couple dozen thousand more seats could prove dividends. So Nick Fairley getting involved already high, which is more likely. Ten Hag will be sacked mid-season or Man United finish 4th. We'll touch on that. Honestly, if I had to guess right now, I think it's more likely we're going to finish 4th and Ten Hag is going to get sacked. But obviously, you never know what's going to happen. We could not win a game by Christmas and Ten Hag will probably get sacked, but you never know. But so moving on with the stadium. So the report continues. This joint task force. Remember, INEOS came in, they appointed the joint task force. A lot of key figures in there. Gary Neville's a part of it as well. We talked about that in a few months back as well. But the task force is set to explore options for Old Trafford. They have assessed redevelopment, but it's currently focusing attentions on what a new build might look like and how it could be financed, having concluded initially at this stage that this is the best way to transform the fan experience. Continuing on, Sir Jim's preference is also for a stadium built from scratch rather than a renovation, and United believe doing so on land owned by the club adjacent to the current ground is feasible, meaning the team can continue to play at Old Trafford through the construction work. And I think that's a big key too. You're continuing to, it's not like Tottenham, when they went to Wembley and stuff, you're able to stay where you are, because if you've been to Old Trafford, if you look at maps, you'll see there's a giant car park just adjacent to where there's now plenty of room for a new stadium, very minimal. It's great that like Spurs, people don't have to go to Wembley while the stadium is being rebuilt and whatnot. So that's a plus. The alternative, improving stand by stand Old Trafford, would mean a reduction of capacity at different points and headaches over how to house 51,000 season ticket holders should the number of available seats fall below that figure. So again, similar point. Trying to renovate the current stadium during all this is just not financially feasible. There's probably going to be safety concerns. And as I'll touch upon in the future, there's probably going to be a bit of structural and engineering concerns as well regarding the feasibility of a renovation. So obviously since its kind of announcement, since the task force's inception and all these things, this has been a very divisive kind of topic for a lot of fans since INEOS have come in, right? There's the keep Old Trafford, update it crowd versus the new stadium crowd kind of a thing. You've seen stadiums that have been refurnished, like Tottenham's Hotspur Stadium, the Spurs' new stadium, is a thing of beauty from what I've been told. I've seen obviously footage and things. People who have been there rave about it. City's facilities, Man City's facilities, including the training ground, the academy, all that are top of the line of things. And I love Old Trafford. It's obviously got a lot of history, but it is falling apart. I had my first leaky roof experience the last time I was there. I sat right underneath a leak and it was dripped on the whole match. So I hear that part of it too. Some want to keep Old Trafford, some want a new stadium. And then there's for me, the biggest elephant in the room right now when it comes to the new stadium is the government / public funded option in terms of just how it's going to be paid for. I don't know the intricacies of how this works in the UK. I only know a little bit about how this works here in the States. While using public taxes and whatnot is not unheard of, it's actually very, very common over here anyway. It's obviously going to raise eyebrows. I did some research, more research this morning and last night regarding just major sports teams here in the US and how they were funded. And so what I found is out of the 4 major sports in the United States, so the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and the NHL, only 14 stadiums are not publicly backed by subsidies. 14. How many stadiums are there, Sean? There's 124 teams between those 4 sports. So a little over 10% of those stadiums are not publicly funded. So that's huge. And like I said, it's kind of the norm over here. I don't know exactly how that works over in the UK in terms of how the subsidies and the tax things work. I'm not an expert on UK, public finance. But like I said, it's the norm over here. It's a bit odd to me that it is so normal over here. It is almost just accepted and a given and almost just anticipated. And I'm surprised that a greater percentage of the general public isn't against it. Is oftentimes it does mean a portion of that public tax goes towards a stadium build, or a big chunk of funds can be reallocated away from things like public schools or something, for example, or you can get like tax breaks and whatnot, incentives. It can happen a number of ways, but more often it is a public subsidies in that case. So for instance, Little Caesars Arena, which is the new hockey / NBA stadium, not that far from where I live. So it's home to the Detroit Red Wings and the Detroit Pistons. That was subsidized by a bond issue, which diverted taxes paid by local businesses into the stadium construction. So annually, an estimated $15 million in taxpayer funds is earmarked for public schools and whatnot, is used to subsidize that stadium. Not a good look. I don't know how it happens like that. And there may not be a ton of legitimacy to the claim that INEOS and this task force may have made on how this new stadium would boost the local economy as well. Again, don't quote me as far as the UK stuff is concerned. I'm just going by what happens here. So there was actually a survey conducted in 2017, and 83% of the economists polled in that survey expressed belief that the cost to the public outweighed the benefits to the public when it comes to these kind of stadium projects and public subsidies. Danny B, big up, man. Good morning. How are you today? How are things over in Beantown? Much of the money that these new stadiums brings in does not stay in the local economy as well. Instead of going to stadium employees and other sources that would benefit the local community, a lot of that money actually goes towards paying the organizations themselves, so the sports entities, the owners. And again, many argue that the billions spent on a stadium could be better utilized by going directly to things like schools, hospitals, and public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. KD, man, how you doing, everybody? Good to see the usual suspects here today. And so again, we know that one of INEOS's first projects was to establish this task force, right? Danny's just starting to work, man. Yeah, this is got some clients later on today. My wife's going to be working here in a little bit. That's why I got to jump on early so I can get in ahead of her when she works, because she's right next door in the next room when she is working. The task force, INEOS task force, again, they're weighing up all options. They're consulting with local government, local businesses, communities, fan groups, the general public, all of it. Again, it comes down to this new stadium versus that renovation. And again, I see both sides to the argument, right? I see pros and cons towards keeping Old Trafford, right? There's nostalgia there, there's memories there, there's history there. We won so much there. I mean, the stadium survived bombings, for gosh sakes, right? Like, there's a lot there. If you do an Old Trafford tour, if you're able to go over there, they'll walk you through the whole stadium. They'll point out all these little pieces. You get to walk out onto the pitch, sit in the dugout. You pass right by the original players tunnel, which is still there. There's a lot of history there. The bricks, you can almost feel and smell the history just in the brickwork throughout the stadium alone. I hear that argument, right? From an emotional perspective, there's a big part of me that doesn't want to see it change, but it's not because it's more of a lament over what the Glazers have allowed to happen to the stadium, right? Again, you have to blame the Glazers in this regard. You can't blame INEOS. Not only would those individual renovation projects cost a lot, but again, you'd have to close down portions of Old Trafford as each project individually is undertaken, and reducing capacity so less and less people will be able to even go to the games while that project is being undertaken. There's also doubts, because this task force have consulted with engineers. There's doubts over the structural integrity of the current stadium because it hasn't been updated. Would the foundations, would the structures even be able to support, added capacity, new, in this aesthetics and things like that? Would they even be able to support that on a structural integrity basis? McMillan, good morning. How to see you, Justin? After visiting the stadium locker room, I think an upgrade is necessary, not a complete overhaul. I mean, a lot of people agree. I think, like we've been talking about, again, like I just said, updating would take piece by piece, and you'd have to close down stadiums, reduce capacity as each of that is undertaken, and the individual costs are going to be a lot to do that. I think that it could happen. It would take a long time, and financially it would hurt, because not only, okay, you can say like, well, the renovations compared to the new stadium costs are less, but you're losing so much money in revenue by also having to close down portions and reduce capacity as you do those renovations. So ultimately, it's going to even out. Then, if you want to get philosophical about it, you have the ship of Theseus paradox. So in the question of this paradox, is an object still the same after all of its original components have been replaced over time? So this is coming from Plutarch. He was a Greek writer. And he asked, if a ship has had every wooden part replaced, does it remain the same ship? If a ship is gradually replaced over time, one part at a time, is the ship that exists after the fact still the same ship as the original, basically? Is it Old Trafford if over 5, 6, 7, 8 years, all the pieces have been completely replaced, but it just sits on the same footprint, the same lot of land? Is it the same? If I buy a house, like Justin, you live near downtown Plymouth. You've seen the kind of stuff that goes on, in downtown Plymouth, in and around downtown. People buy the small houses, they completely rip them off, leaving nothing but a plot of land, and put a brand new house up. It's not the same house. It's not. It's the same plot of land. It's not the same house anymore. That's just the way it is. And so I know it's a lot to take. Like, we want to get philosophical and economical first thing in the morning. I mean, I think I just gave myself a migraine just bringing it up, right? But the paradox, the ship of Theseus paradox, is still worth considering. It may be on the same site, but if all the pieces are replaced and it looks completely different, is it still Old Trafford? McMillan says, unfortunately, a new stadium is the way to go. It can never take away from the club's history. Yeah, and that's a good point too. Does history change? does it. I remember going to Tiger Stadium when I was younger. Tiger Stadium's not there anymore. Now we have Comerica Park, but I still have memories from Tiger Stadium. I just do. And yeah, there's always going to be a part that, remembers and misses and wishes that you didn't have to replace it. But again, blame the Glazers, not INEOS. And again, no one's saying anything's happening for sure. Obviously, the task force is weighing in all the options, but they're just they have to do their due diligence. They have to be thorough and meticulous in this because they have to make the right decision. James Ducker with the Telegraph actually had something to add to this. He says United will not make a final decision on the stadium until the end of the year, following full consultation. So they're trying to do their due diligence, and they hear the fans who have those memories and don't want it. They hear that. They want to weigh in all those perspectives, right? Remember what I said yesterday. Anything in life is always going to look the same if you only look at it from one angle. This is why when you go to a nice museum, they put the nice sculpture in the room. You have to be able to move around it, see how it looks from different light hits it. There's movement involved. And that's the point. That's how these things are supposed to be appreciated. Justin says, true, I believe INEOS should keep the bones, especially historical bits like the walls that survived the bombings. KD, the Greater Trafford Wharfside infrastructure is being redeveloped. The stadium is part of the whole project. Public funds would have to come in. The benefits to the city as a whole justify. And yeah, KD, I mean, and if you go back to the beginning of the video, I can only take what I've read and researched here in the US because I don't know how the laws work in the UK, but there are a lot of economists who argue that the supposed benefits to the public are dwarfed by the cost to the public. There's not as much benefit involved. But again, I'm just putting the facts out there. You guys can still maintain your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I totally get it. I've been to Old Trafford a few times. I love it. And like Justin says, I think that maybe I don't think they're going to tear down Old Trafford if they build a new stadium, at least not right away. I don't know what the plan is. I think they could still utilize it for other things. But this is why we're having the conversation, right? It's like these updates, they spark opinion, they spark feedback and conversations, and it's great to get people interacting. I love it. Yeah, Katie, the Wharfside project in Salford and the Keys, and it has been an ongoing project for decades now, and it looks completely different as it did before. Obviously, the Maritime Museum is out there. They've got all the shops and the restaurants and things. I've stayed out there when I've gone there. It's nice. It's beautiful. Justin says about a room replacement, seats, concessions, a locker room, the training ground. These things need to be upgraded. Keep and even highlight the historical sites of Old Trafford. Yeah, I think the roof needs to be updated for sure. You remember the last season we had, you guys had that heavy rain over there. I think they said like more rain fell in a few hours that day than like the whole like month combined. And the rain was coming through the roof. It was dripping down through the staircases and whatnot. It was bad, like super bad. McMillan, they were wanting to incorporate old parts of Old Trafford in the new stadium. I mean, and that's something that I posed a while back, like maybe take some of the brickwork and incorporate, and plus you've got the Munich tunnel and everything over here, and the Busby statue, Sir Alex statue. I don't think they're going to tear it down, because then what would be the point, right? I mean, you might as well just tear down Old Trafford. You're going to take it away and then replace those parts. KD, for most stadium developments, are purely for a sporting event like the World Cup or Olympics, never really bringing financial benefits to the community. But this is different. It could be. I'm just going by what the examples given in the U.S. Like I said, of 124 sports teams across 4 major sports in the U.S., only 14 stadiums were not publicly funded here in the U.S. I gave the examples. Little Caesars Arena, where the Red Wings and the Pistons play, that was a public subsidy that continues to take $15 million from taxpayer funds annually to subsidize the build. So it's interesting. James Ducker adds, a new 100,000 capacity stadium would cost more than $2 billion and take 6 years to complete. So again, this is going to be a while. Although redeveloping Old Trafford would be estimated to cost between 1 to 1.2 billion, there is an expectation it could take longer than 6 years to complete, given the complexities of renovating a building from the early 1900s. Again, like I said, if you buy an old restaurant or storefront that in a downtown area that's been around for a couple hundred years, it's not just as simple as slapping on a coat of paint. You might have to redo plumbing. You might have to redo wiring. There might be asbestos. There might be insulation issues, stuff that just happens. Like you buy an old house. People buy these old farmhouses and want to renovate them. Like it's not sometimes as simple as just slapping on a new coat of paint, putting in some new fixtures. Like it can be a whole thing. And if we know anything from Everton or Spurs, the initial estimates for the cost don't tend to be what actually happened. Spurs Stadium was estimated to cost a couple hundred million, ended up costing over $1 billion. That's just what you have to anticipate. That you have to budget for that as well. So it's interesting. If I had to choose today, if you ask me right now, I have to make a decision. Sean, that's up to you. INEOS, they're taking you. I would probably say new stadium on the adjacent ground, but I would demand that that stadium is funded by Sir Jim and INEOS and not publicly funded. I just think that that's the right thing to do. I think that that's responsible. These rich owners, these billionaires, they don't get to be billionaires by spending their own money when they don't have to. You have to be cheap to be rich. That's what I've always said. So anytime a rich person can find a way to not use their own money to do that, they're going to do that. Close that window. It's getting warm. I love Old Trafford. There's a lot of history there, like we've talked about. But I think that because of the Glazers' neglect and because of just the age of the stadium and the cost, and I think that long term, I think the benefits of increasing capacity with a new stadium by even 30,000, like it's maybe anticipated, I think from an ownership standpoint, that's gonna be better for them. Katie says, Sean, is it true that Kroenke financed his SoFi Stadium? Taxpayers should not be paying for it, says Danny B. I agree. Taxpayers should not be paying for it either. I think a lot of that money could be better used elsewhere. Because like I said, the economists, like studies have shown, like the facts are there, at least in the US, that the financial benefits are just not what they're all cracked up to be when it comes to that. They don't actually boost the local economy. I think one of the few benefits that was noted was that, like, on game days, like at least here in the States, the one noticeable benefit is that they see a reduction in like crime on that day. So it's interesting. More often than not, people who will come to go to like a Lions or like a Tigers game, it's not like they're going and they're spending all day in downtown and eating anywhere. It's they're going to the stadium, they're eating at the stadium, they're drinking at the stadium, and then they're going home. And, and the US is not like, at least from what I've seen in the UK, we have suburbs and suburbs and suburbs and suburbs everywhere. Our stadiums are usually in downtowns or nearby. There's restaurants, everything. When I've gone to the UK, a lot of those stadiums are smack dab in the middle of neighborhoods and whatnot. Like, you got to take trains to get to a lot of places in the UK. You don't do that here. You drive 10 minutes to the next suburb and stuff. So we're a little bit more condensed in a lot of those ways. As far as Kroenke financing his SoFi Stadium, I don't know, because I don't really care about Stan Kroenke, if I have to be honest. I haven't done any research in that. I know SoFi is where we played the other day, right? Oh, let me see. SoFi Stadium was privately funded and is owned by Stadco LA LLC, Stan Kroenke's stadium companies. The stadium developers will be eligible for tax reimbursement on the public infrastructure they build. The reimbursement will become available after 100% of the taxes generated in the first 5 years are paid. So yeah, sounds like it's privately funded. So kudos. But kind of like the shirt sales stuff, the contracts and the terms of all these things can be unique to each individual stadium, each individual project. So there are ways to do this. There are ways for the owners to get this like reimbursement and whatnot after. It sounds like you're reimbursed after 100% of that is paid. So to answer your question, Katie, a quick Google search shows me that that was privately funded, but don't quote me. It's just a quick Google search as we're chatting here. So those are my thoughts on the new stadium project. It was really cool to get everyone else's thoughts. Keep your feedback coming in, keep your questions coming in. I may not have the answers, but it's always good to keep the conversation going. Like I said, if I had to choose, new stadium on the adjacent ground, paid for by INEOS and Sir Jim, not publicly funded. And that's just me. And that's me not saying that I don't want Old Trafford or I want to tear down. It's me just being realistic about the situation, and that as it stands, Old Trafford is not fit for purpose and in many, many ways. And that goes towards Carrington as well, the women's facilities as well. All of that has not been touched by INEOS since they took over, other than a new coat of paint every couple of years and a new, giant poster basically on the front of the stadium and the megastore and stuff. So INEOS are trying to really get down to the foundations, but they realize that sometimes you have to just start over again. And it's a fact of life. I can't change that. So KD, a reduced Old Trafford as a living museum used by the academy and women's teams with a totally new stadium on the container site is a good solution. We need befitting 21st century fit. Yeah, and that's what I've said before too. You can take Old Trafford as it is, use it for the women's team, use it for the academy, use it for other events, as well. Repurpose some of the, you can, reduce the capacity a little bit and put in, like you said, expand the museum, put in storefronts, put in restaurants if you want to. I know that they already have the Red Cafe up top. They've got the mega store, obviously, but you can make it like Manchester United could have almost like a campus in that regard. Heck, put dorms for the academy players in Old Trafford. Who knows what you can do, a lot of things. And that's why I'm saying it's not up to the public to come up with those solutions. It's up to INEOS and this task force to come up with these creative solutions. That's their job. And so hopefully they're going to continue to do their diligence. They're going to continue to research and everything, but we'll see how it goes. But good conversation to have, good things to think about. McMillan, sure, Glazers with all their thieving of the club should be forced to pay for part of the payment for the new stadium. Glazers haven't. If you go to the Old Trafford today and buy a bottle of water or a pie, you've already put more money into that club than the Glazers have, man. They're not going to pay for anything. Leopard doesn't change his spots, right? As Roy Keane famously said about some of our players. We can say it about the owners. They're not. I'm glad that they're not allowed to take dividends for a while. I'm really glad that that's kind of done and dusted. It sounds like they may be out the door in a couple of years completely. I know a lot of people wanted that to happen right away. I think that was a big part of why people wanted the Sheikh to come in. I think a lot of people saw Saudi money and thought that meant instant trophies, thought that meant no more Glazers, thought that meant this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. And so we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to get into the ownership thing because it's moot now that we have a new owner. But let's move on to a little bit of transfer news this morning. Not much to go on, not many updates. There's no Lenny Euro updates yet, at least not since I've gone live. Not really any updates for Fofana, De Ligt. Nothing really to say there. Everyone's just kind of biding their time. Ugarte, same situation. Antony has reportedly attracted interest from Turkey. Now, we've talked about Antony a few times. Antony is kind of a hot topic for a lot of United fans. The English media love him. I think the moment he did that spin move in his first season, I think the knives were out. It was just fodder, low-hanging fruit, whatever you want to call it. But according to Turkish journalist Ertan Suskun, Besiktas have made a move for Antony. So obviously Besiktas are one of the bigger clubs in Europe. I think they're right now in qualifiers for the Europa League. Suskun adds that United do want to sell Antony, but that Antony does not want to leave United. And I get it. Why would you want to leave? You're getting paid 200 grand a week, a big jump from the 20K you were on at Ajax. You're at one of the biggest clubs in the world. I mean, I get why no one would want to leave Old Trafford and leave United, but I think it would be good for him maybe to get out of that spotlight. And honestly, I just don't think he's up for the Premier League. I don't think he can handle the pressure. I don't think he can handle the physicality of the league. If you watched him play at Ajax, he was very, very good at Ajax. Like, he was a really good winger. He was dicing people in that box. He was literally using his footwork to get past 3 or 4 defenders at once, sometimes with like one move. It was a thing of beauty. He doesn't get that in the Premier League. People are not going to hesitate to throw a little weight on him and not let him do it. And you've seen him since he's joined United, and he's got found out a little bit in that regard, that he is a little bit more limited than maybe he thought. He's a little bit more limited than maybe Ten Hag thought. And I get it. I mean, you never know how a player is going to turn out when you sign him. It is what it is. I don't blame Ten Hag for the fee. I don't blame Antony for the fee. That was Woodward and Murtaugh and Arnold. That was their fault. But I just don't think he's got it. I think we've seen his confidence take a dip. We've seen him get more frustrated. I think he's going to ground on so many tackles. He got frustrated. If you look at the thumbnail, that's a photo famously taken when Ten Hag had him come on as a sub, and He argued with Ten Hag one day about having to play left back for a little bit. I think it's just time for. I was patient with Antony. I gave him a couple seasons. It's just not worked out. So I think it's best that he moves on. KD says, no matter what is decided, I'm really excited that INEOS are actually serious about returning our beloved club to the very top. Danny B, Antony, he was poo again against Arsenal. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know Antony was on the pitch probably for 10 minutes or so after he came on, because he just was kind of anonymous. And so I think that Antony, I get frustrated with Antony. I want, people will say he's got no right foot. He's got no right foot. That doesn't even frustrate me as much as it does as his lack of confidence. Like, he has a lot of opportunities when he gets the ball to take on a man, to back himself, to use a bit of that trickery and just get by a defender and get up the pitch. He just doesn't. More often than not, he gets the ball, he does a little like heel flick, kind of drops the shoulder, and then it just kind of passes it back to another player. And oftentimes that pass is not accurate. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a tactical thing. Like, I need him to try a little bit more. And the funny thing is last season, when he did back himself, when he did push and fight and get forward, he actually created something. He created a chance for us. Like, if he would just do that more frequently, I don't know if it's just an Antony thing or what, but like, we need you to stop cutting in. We need you to stop trying to shoot shots with the left foot. And we need you to actually try to create a little bit more. Use the right foot. I've seen you do it. I know you can do it. You just, for some reason, don't want to, or you don't back yourself in that moment. It's frustrating as shit. Macmillan, I don't see Besiktas can afford Antony. The most expensive transfer in history is 11 mil. If Ashworth can sell him, then Ashworth deserves a statue outside the new stadium. I'd imagine if Besiktas were in form, they're not going to be able to pay what we would ask. We would probably ask at least 25 to 35 million for Antony, which is around what we were supposed to pay for him originally if we would have signed him in June when Ten Hag identified him. We waited till August and Ajax upped their price. It could be a loan with an option or obligation. Who knows? I mean, we've been doing more loans recently with bigger players, and that's what KD says. Maybe, what about loaning him out? His confidence. Yeah, I think his confidence is shot. And you can tell. You can just tell when he's not trying things anymore, when there's opportunities to do something. If he's one-on-one with one fullback and there's a lot of space to work with, when he opts to pass it back instead of just trying to get past, I would rather him try and lose the ball than just not try anything and just kill the momentum, kill the attack, kill the chance before it even starts. Like, at least try something, man. But moving on, so Jamie Jackson has had his say on the Nusayr Mazraoui deal. He wrote a piece for The Guardian yesterday. He claims United and Bayern have agreed to a fee for Mazraoui between 15 and 20 mil. Fabrizio Romano adds that Mazraoui wants the move. He's patiently waiting for the clubs to agree to a fee. It's been interesting to me to see some fans criticizing the Mazraoui thing. I've seen a fair few United fans on social media complaining that Wan-Bissaka is better. Why are we buying Mazraoui? Why is he injured? Like, he's had injuries, as I pointed out in my deep dive video, but so was Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka was out for several months last season with an injury. I've seen people say that Wan-Bissaka is better defensively. Like, he's one of the best in the league defensively. He does average more interceptions per 90 than Mazraoui, but Mazraoui actually averages more tackles per 90 than Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And offensively, like his attacking output, his shot creating, his ball progression, Mazraoui's numbers are way ahead of Wan-Bissaka. So, and that suits Ten Hag a little bit more. That suits the modern game a little more. We want our fullbacks to be able to be a little bit more attacking. If you look at some of the fullbacks out there that are like highly rated, your Teo Hernandez's, your DeMarcos, your Hakimis, your Alexander Arnolds, all these guys are very, very attack oriented. And I think that's where we're going. So Macmillan says the problem with Antony is his 200K per week wages. Which club is going to pay that? INEOS would have to cover most of his wages, and that's what Murtaugh and them would do, not INEOS. Yeah. Or player could take a pay cut. De Ligt is taking a pay cut to come to United. Like, a player doesn't have to do it, and it's not that common, but it is an option. A player could just say, I do want to play more, or I'm not happy here. I'll take a pay cut. I'd rather go play with you. It does happen sometimes, but it is what it is. Danny B, they clearly don't want to progress. They think Wan-Bissaka is better than Maz, one best in Europe. Man, Mazraoui is very good. He's very, very good. Like I said, I loved him when he was at Ajax. I was hoping that he was one that we would bring in, obviously. He went to Bayern. Bayern have had some issues, obviously. Nagelsmann's come and gone. Tuchel's come and gone. Vincent Company is there now. And clearly Vincent Company maybe is not in the plans. You remember they did bring in Sasha Bowie last year as well from Galatasaray, and so there's nothing wrong with having depth, but Mazraoui's played left back a lot as well, so it is what it is. Nick Millen says apparently West Ham United have agreed on a 50 million plus add-ons fee for Wan-Bissaka, just waiting on Wan-Bissaka and West Ham to agree on wages. And then the Mazraoui deal may go through. Yeah, that's what we spoke about yesterday. A lot of just waiting around right now. It doesn't sound like personal terms are an issue for a lot of the deals that we're working on. Sancho and PSG personal terms. De Ligt United personal terms. Mazraoui United personal terms. Everybody's personal terms are fine. It's just the club's haggling right now. So it is what it is. But I do think that despite popular belief, yes, Wan-Bissaka does average more interceptions, but Mazraoui averages more tackles, and his attacking output is way ahead of Wan-Bissaka. So I think it's a no-brainer as far as. Plus, it's good to have quality and depth like we've been screaming out for. We get an injury. If Dallo goes down injured, or maybe Dallo wants to, or we don't have left backs. Mazraoui has played there. He played there for Morocco, right? And he has played there for Bayern. We can play left back. So can Dallo. So it's good to have some versatility. I know we were linked with Kadioglu with Fenerbahce. He plays left back. He's also right-footed. So we'll see how that goes. And then just to wrap things up, so United have reportedly verbally expressed their interest in Trevoh Chalobah from Chelsea. So it sounds like they've actually made inquiries to Chelsea and expressed interest in him. And this is coming from Ben Jacobs. He claims multiple Premier League clubs have inquired, including Manchester United, but Chelsea don't have any official offers yet. Chelsea want a minimum of £25 million and may even hold out for closer to £30 million. And we talked a little bit about Trevoh Chalobah recently, compared some of his numbers over the last couple seasons. He's actually not bad. And I think for depth, he's probably an improvement on Lindelof, arguably an improvement on Maguire. And that's not me saying Maguire's bad. That's just me saying he's probably better. So he does raise that floor. He does improve our depth. And so I just don't know if I'd want to spend 25 or 30 million on the defender that Chelsea clearly don't want. So you guys let me know your thoughts on Chalobah. Would you like him or not? He was one of Chelsea's better defenders. I would argue he was better than Colwill, but I have to add that caveat that Colwill was asked to play on the left a lot more, and so that made him look awful. But it is what it is. Macmillan, Mazraoui is 2-footed, can play right back and left back. His first touch is fantastic. Is a better all-around football. Yeah, Mazraoui's tall. He wins a lot of aerial duels as well. I think that could be a help on that back post when we're defending, because Wan-Bissaka gets done on that back post very often. I think if both of our fullbacks for many years, not just under Ten Hag, tend to get sucked in very, very centrally, which causes problems. But KD says, I feel that Mazraoui would be a good signing, but the issue is it being tied to losing Wan-Bissaka. We will need his skill set in certain games and situations. I see Dallo as a superior version of Mazraoui. Yeah, I think Dallo and Mazraoui, the question is, we don't always have to choose. I think a lot of times it's easy for fans to kind of get into this either or. Are we going to play Rashford or Garnacho? Remember it was Pogba versus Bruno for a while there. How about we celebrate the fact that we have two players that are good enough to even have that argument about? You don't have to choose between Pogba and Bruno. We have them both. We don't have to choose between Dallo and Mazraoui. We have them both potentially. That's only a good thing. Cool, let them fight out for a spot, and at the end of the year we can reassess if somebody wants to stay or go. But having both is not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, Mazraoui actually averages more tackles per 90 than Wan-Bissaka, who is known for his tackling. So we'll see how it is. Macmillan, Chalobah was Chelsea's best defender last season, can play center back, right back, and CDM. Yeah, and like I said, he was very good. I think a lot of people have said, that their opinion, he was their best defender last year. KD, I'd take Chalobah, but Colwill is a greater upside. Danny B, 25 tops, maybe some add-ons, not walk away. He's a solid player. Yeah, I think if you had add-ons that took it to like 22, 23 or whatever, I could probably stomach that. If it's like 15, 17 million plus like 5 to 8 million add-ons, all right, that's fine. But is it a choice? If it's a choice between Chalaba or someone like a Delit, I mean, how would you guys feel about that? Because it sounds like we don't want to go over 38 million for Delit. Obviously, Chalaba would be cheaper, but would it be worth spending a little bit more if you could lock in the Delit deal? Obviously, Delit's got those injuries. We don't know what the situation is with Lenny Yoro yet. It's these are fun conversations to have. There's not really a right or wrong answer. It's hard to balance it all. McMillan, I see them going in for Mizraoui, who's pretty cheap, also covering for left back. I doubt they will buy a left back while waiting on Malacia to return. I don't know how long it's going to take for Malacia to get match fit, let alone fully recovered, because it's not just enough to get clearance to play. You got to get match fit, which is going to take time as well. And what that means is you can't be relied upon really as an option while all that is going on, if that makes sense. You just can't. Danny B, I prefer Chalaba than Branthwaite, to be honest. I think I probably would as well, mostly from a cost perspective. But again, Chalaba is not one that you have to develop, really. He's already in his mid-20s. He's already kind of ready to go. He'll kind of know his role. And it sounds like he'd be eager to maybe fight for it. And there's motivation there. He's clearly not in Chelsea's plan. So if you express an interest and the player pretty much forces that move, you could probably get him for cheaper than what Chelsea are asking for. Chelsea are not just going to hold on to him, because Chelsea also have had financial issues recently as well. Danny B, not Delit, though. McMillan, is Delit still coming? Ito broke his foot, and now Bayern are a CB down, even if they still get Ta. Yeah, that's what we talked about yesterday. Ito went down in that friendly, broke his foot. How does that impact our move for Delit? Delit has already told Bayern reportedly he wants to leave. Personal terms are agreed. He's taking a pay. He wants United. Could this help us? Could this hurt us? Because the question is, because we know that Bayern want Ta. Are they going to be more pressured now to get Ta and willing to take a little less for Delit if it means they can? It's all about the player that Bayern want, or Vincent Kompany wants. It's all about that. If they don't want Delit and they want Ta, they'll probably get Ta. I mean, and that's what it is. You're not gonna, but that's also going to depend on finances. They still want Desiree Doué. They do need to sell players. They might be selling Alphonso Davies, but I don't know. I read some reports that Ancelotti wants to keep Ferland Mendy. Who knows? Clearly, Delit is not 100% in the plans, because even Thomas Tuchel brought in new defenders. They brought in Eric Dyer mid-season last year as well, and then Ito, and then they want Ta. So we'll see how it goes. Brendan, hey Brendan, how you doing, man? Brian has quite a lot of CBs. Nick says I would love to have Delit. I think that aside from those injuries, Delit is one of the best defenders you could probably get. It's just the injuries that kind of worry me a little bit. Danny B, not so sure if the Delit deal is as guaranteed. I think it was more guaranteed a few days ago. I think when Ito picked up that injury, it definitely added a bit of a spanner in the works there. I don't think it was as locked in, like Danny B says, as maybe we are led to believe, but I think we are interested. He is a target for us, and he does want to come. But I think finances are playing a big part in a lot of this. And obviously we have been playing this tug of war with Bayern for a couple weeks now, it sounds like. McMillan wants to sign Davies, Alphonso Davies. I did not think Alphonso Davies looked great in the latter stages of the Champions League myself, but that's just me. But everybody's got a preference, right? So in any case, that is going to do it for me today, you guys. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Danny, KD, McMillan, Brendan, Nick, everybody who stopped by today. Who else? I know I saw someone else. Justin. Good to see everybody jumping in, sharing their thoughts, especially on the stadium, on some of our transfer news. Not a whole lot of updates on a lot of the fronts. I think we'll see some more stuff developing over the next couple of days, personally. Gone quiet as far as Ugarte's going. It's been quiet for Delit for a while. Sounds like Mizraoui could be coming through the door sometime soon, and maybe Wan-Bissaka could be out the door. So we'll see what happens. Interesting news again, like the stadium. If you're not catching the live, go back and watch the video, learn about the stadium plans. We talk a little bit of economics, talk a little bit of philosophy, if you can stomach that so early in the morning. But in any case, thank you guys for stopping by. As always, if anything does come up today, any major developments, any major news, any here we goes, I will be back to get your thoughts and share mine. Thank you, everybody. McMillan, Katie, everybody's great stream as always. Thank you guys. Appreciate your help. Like the video, please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go check me out on MUFC versus everybody on Twitter. And again, thank you guys for stopping by. I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy your day.